Hey, Dr. Dawn Nicole here, and I want to give a warm greeting to our ProcuraFind platform members. Today, I am going to give you the R section of the CARES program virtually. So, you've already learned the C, which is the contracting opportunity market, right? The size and the scale, and the four sectors of contracting and where you fit in it. And then last month, we talked about the A, which is applying and assessing to ideal corporate clients. But this month, we are going to focus on the R, responding to RFPs. Now, if you have not experienced the CARES framework, this is a state-of-the-art framework you can only get through ProcuraFind. So let's deep dive into the R because this is where the money's at, you all. This is the part that intimidates most small businesses across the US. And it doesn't matter what industry, what vertical you are in, a lot of people are intimidated so much that they won't even respond to RFPs. They will get certified. They will go to all the networking things, but they just fear responding to RFPs. So on the agenda today, we're going to focus on what is an RFP and why an RFP matters. We're going to talk about how RFPs are delivered to you and when. We're going to deep dive into 8 key terms of proposals. By the way, you should have these key terms in your participant guide. So you should have gotten a participant guide right before looking at this video. So make sure you have your participant guide either printed out or close by. So you're going to learn 8 terms. You're going to learn details needed that you will always need when responding to the proposal so that you are not caught off guard. You're going to get 9 key process and general terms. And you'll see that there are some technical terms with the RFP and then some other terms. So anyway, and then some best practices. And I'm going to walk you through a live experience. Okay. So let's jump in. And one of the first things I want to ask you is how many people here today have ever responded to an RFP? Now, obviously, you're not able to talk back to me, but just think about that. Have you ever responded to an RFP? Now, before you say no, all right, because some of you are going to be like, no, not me. I haven't gone through a formal process. The RFP portion can happen in a number of ways. If you ever had a conversation with someone that you met who was looking for services, products, and goods that you offer, and in that conversation, the person said, hey, make me a proposal, list out a little bit about your company and your price and what you would charge, you low-key did an RFP. Right? So the first thing we have to do is take away this big fear that we have around requests for proposals. Chances are, if someone asked you for your price, they were requesting a proposal. So that's what it is, request for proposal. And you responded to that by sending your proposal. It's that simple. A lot of people will say no, that they haven't because it hasn't gone through this official process, but RFPs come in a lot of ways. In fact, we tell people if you've ever responded to a job application, it's pretty similar to responding to an RFP. They're asking you for information about your business, about your company. Okay, so let's keep on going, you guys. So what is a request for a proposal? What is that? So this is really a formal document issued by a company or government agency to solicit your price points. Now, I don't know if I'm going to talk about it here or not, but an RFP is very different from an RFI or an RFQ. So an RFI is if they just want requests for information. Just give me some information about your company. What is it that you do? Who do you do it for? Who are some of your current clients? What type of work have you done similarly in the past? That is an RFI. Okay. An RFQ is specific to a request for quotation, but an RFP will contain all of those things. It really contains the RFI piece, right? Who are we and who have we done work for in the past? Who might our competitors be? Who's on our team? That's RFI. Our RFQ is the quote, right? And a request for proposal would be that information, the quote, and how you would approach the work, right? So here's our problem. How would you approach it if you were won or awarded this work, and how would you go about it, and what time frame would you do it? We're going to get deeper into it, but that's really what they're looking to do. They're really looking to pull from you your approach, your price, why you're the best one for the job. So here's a question for you. Can you win a contract outside of the RFP process? And how might this come about? Yes, yes, and yes. You don't always have to go through a deep RFP process to win a contract. Sometimes someone will call you directly and say, hey, we already heard about you. We know that you're the best for the job. And here's what our budget is. Will you do it? Right? You didn't even have to fill out an RFP. Think about that. How many times has that already happened for you, right? You didn't have to fill anything out. Sometimes the relationship will dictate that. And guess what? Many of the contracts you all have probably gotten to date has been probably outside of the RFP process because this game is about who you know, where you go, and what you can show. All right. So do not think for one moment that all of your work will come through the RFP process. However, it's still important for you to understand how to play this game and how to work the process. It would be wrong of me as the founder of ProcuraFind not to teach you this. So let's keep on moving. So we're going to deep dive into non-RFP contracts, right? So what is a non-RFP situation and when and how can they occur, especially as we think about procurement leaders, procurement managers. By the way, procurement managers are going to be those managers who basically are buying products, right? They are procuring services. They are basically buyers, okay? So what are some situations where you might get a phone call or an email and you've been pre-selected? Well, the first situation is opportunities that are under $10,000. Do not be alarmed if someone already knows about you because you sent an RFI. What is that again? Request for information. So you already sent some information about who you are, which could be a business capability statement. You already sent information. They like what they see. They contact you and say, hey, we have this opportunity coming up in 2 months. It pays $8,000 because it's under $10,000. We don't have to go through a competitive process. That, my friends, would be a scenario where they don't have to go through an RFP. But also, I mentioned this earlier. This is how I've made all of my money, direct corporate relationships. So I would say 95% of the time, we won all of our contracts, direct corporate relationships. I didn't have to go through a grueling RFP process, but 5% of the time I did. So I understand completely the need for RFPs, okay? But sometimes you can bypass that because it's about who you know, my friend. This is a relationship game. And then if you are playing in the federal government space and you are already signed up for GSA schedules, okay, you can also bypass the RFP. Now let's break this down for a second. What is a GSA schedule? So a GSA schedule, typically well-versed in the federal government space, is where you already went through a rigorous GSA pre-approval process. This is where your prices are fixed for the government. They've already been approved. You already went through training. By the way, you have to go through like a series of videos. You have to go through training. You have to be approved to be a GSA schedule contractor with the federal government. So I might put a link in the description of this video so you can learn more about GSA schedules. But anyway, GSA schedules is a protected classification. That means you don't have to compete for contracts. You've been pre-approved. Your price point, your products and goods are already ready to rock and roll so that when those procurement officers have a need, they can pull from GSA schedules and not have to have you go through a competitive process again. So this is really good information for you all to know if you want to play in that federal space, okay? So GSA schedules, also called GSA contracts or federal supply schedules, are, like I said, special agreements, you guys. It makes it faster, it makes it easier, and especially when you have a fair price for bulk and you can show a pricing discount for this GSA scheduled effort, you can get in the door faster. I'll put a link in the description. So out of curiosity, I want to know, of course, you can't answer me back because this is pre-recorded, but I'm curious to know how many service-based businesses out there listening to my voice right now have won a contract outside of the RFP process versus how many product-based businesses have won outside of RFP. Chances are, if you're service-based, you're more likely to do an RFP or to have to put together a formal proposal because you have soft services, intangible services. Whereas a product-based business, usually it's an order on demand, it's an e-commerce model, right? And so anyway, different model altogether, but there may be times though, product people, you're not off the hook so fast. There could be times where a procurement manager or a vendor has the green light to order so many widgets, so many pins, so many brochures, right? And they are looking for the best price and they may ask for an RFP from multiple companies. So keep in mind, even though you have an on-demand e-commerce model, right, you may still go through an RFP process if there's a private buyer. So keep that in mind, okay? Okay, so let's talk about some common terms. By the way, this should be in your participant guide. So there are 8 terms on the screen, and I'm going to kind of breeze through all of these because you guys are pros. You already know about this stuff. So again, an RFP is a formal document issued by the company, agency, or organization looking to solicit your products, services, or goods. Okay. An executive summary, you will sometimes see this in the RFP document. So typically an RFP document is a thick document. It can be anywhere from a 5-page document all the way to a 200-page RFP. And here is the name of the game: read it well. There is usually an executive summary, which is an overview of the proposed solution, right? So they will put an overview of this sometimes. SOW, this is also a term you want you want to get to know here. SOW stands for scope of work, and it's a detailed list of services or deliverables required by the buyer. So sometimes you will give an SOW to say, here's what we understand our statement of work, or sometimes they will issue an SOW. Now, this is, by the way, after the RFP process, so these terms are not necessarily something that you would see in the RFP. Once you are awarded the work, you start to look at an SOW, a statement of work, or even an MSA, which I don't think is here, but an MSA is a master service agreement. So if you intend to do a lot of work with the same company, then an MSA covers the entire relationship, while an SOW covers the specific scope of work that you are talking to them about at any given time. Okay, technical proposal. What is that? This is the section that outlines the methodology, tools, approach, and personnel. So if the small business, are issuing a technical proposal, then you are talking about the technical components of your approach, the method you will use, the tools, the approach, and the team. Okay. Now, fee schedule, my favorite thing, because a lot of y'all don't believe in fee schedules. You all, there is such a thing called transparent pricing. This is really important. No hidden costs, no sneaky or funny business. So when you start corporate contracting and government contracting, right, and sometimes B2B contracting, small business, small business, they will request a fee schedule. So this is really a breakdown of your fees, right? How much do you charge, your rates, your cost for services, products, and goods. Now, let me be really clear. This is how much you are charging them. Okay, so I would not put the actual cost of goods and say, well, it's only going to cost me 30 cents for this widget, so I'm going to charge them 30 cents. No, 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 my friends. That's what it costs you, but what are you charging them? So your fee schedule actually should have the cost that you will be charging them for each product, service, or good, and it should be simple enough. We did a study a few years back that simple, transparent pricing sells faster than clunky, hard to understand pricing. I don't care how good you are. If your pricing is hard to understand, they will go with a competitor whose price points are just simple and easy to gravitate. Okay, so keep that in mind. Also, other aspects of this proposal world that you will want to get familiar with is your qualifications. This is your vendor experience, your past projects, any certifications that you have, and references. Listen, let's talk about certifications for a second. Many of you at this juncture, when you hear me say certifications, you're going to say, oh, my WeBank certification, my NMSDC, those are supplier small business certifications, but I'm not only talking about those. What about your sustainability or your eco-friendly certifications, your cybersecurity certifications showing that you are cyber compliant, right? What about different insurance, right? You've been insured to provide this particular service. So certifications have a myriad of different use cases, and make sure that in your qualifications you list all. Okay. Also, evaluation criteria. You may hear them in their proposal talk about how they will evaluate the RFP. Now, this is really important for you to know. The RFP issuer will typically talk about how the RFP is weighted, right? That means how we're going to grade you against your competitors. 30 people will go out for this RFP. This is what we're grading it on. We're grading it or weighting it on price point. We are putting weight on past years of experience experience, how many similarly modeled projects you've done to the one we're proposing now. So anyway, that's your evaluation criteria, how we're going to grade it. And then compliance documentation. Many of them will say, I don't care how good you are, if your compliance documentation is not on point, you don't have a chance. These are your licenses, your insurance certificates, your tax forms. So any compliance documentation that they ask you for, you will need to produce this. Do you have bylaws? They may want to see this. Do you have ADA compliance on your website, meaning that you are compliant with Americans with Disabilities Act, right? For example, so there will be RFPs that want to see this, and you will not get in the door if you can't produce this. So keep that in mind. Okay, so those are 8 common proposal terms that you want to familiarize yourself with. So now let's talk about, so who, Dawn Nicole, who typically receives RFPs? Like, I understand everything you're saying, but who gets them? How do I get them? So let's break this down. So number 1, pre-qualified or registered vendors. In order for you to get the RFP from the company of your dreams, you have to be registered in their supplier or vendor portal. Remember, being registered in a company's portal, the client's portal, is visibility. If you're not registered, you will never get an RFP. So if you are registered in like a government portal, a federal government portal, or a corporation's portal, this is sort of the directory, if you will, right? The dispatch, air traffic control, that when a NAICS code that matches the need is similar and you're in that NAICS code category, you and 100 other businesses just like you get an RFP. And oftentimes it will say bid opportunity, request for a proposal, time sensitive, open this up. And here's what's crazy. I've had members and business owners say to me, oh my gosh, Dawn Nicole, I got something like that and I thought it was spam. No, not spam. Open it up, you guys. Okay, so again, if you're pre-qualified, meaning you're a registered vendor, right? Then you will get the RFP opportunity. Also, in some cases, certified suppliers will sometimes get an RFP opportunity. Now, what do I mean by this? Let's say that I am a part of WeBank, and I actually am. So ProcuraFind is a certified company through WeBank, right? But we're also federally government certified as a WASB. So we're both a WBE and a WASB, right? Which is a woman-owned small business through the federal government and a woman business entity in the corporate space, okay? Now, as a result, because we're in a certified platform, oftentimes corporations will go to WeBank and say, hey, push this RFP out to your WBEs, your women business entities in this region. So I may get an RFP opportunity because I'm a WASB in the federal government space or a WeBank, okay? Also, vendors listed in a procurement portal. Dawn Nicole, make it make sense. What do you mean? If you are listed in supplier.io, right, or supplier gateway. So these supplier procurement portals are typically standalone supplier repositories where you create a profile, and then many companies can sometimes go through that profile. If you have a generic profile on a third-party site, you will get it as well. I recommend, to me, the best way to do this is number 1, if it were me, make sure you register in the company's portals that you want to do business with. That way you get alerted first when there's an RFP opportunity in your category. Secondly, if you can, make sure you are on supplier.io, the supplier gateways of the world, RangeMe. So those are those third parties, and oftentimes they have a free model. You shouldn't have to pay a lot of money. Okay, so let's keep going. Also, industry-specific suppliers who meet eligibility or capacity requirements. So Dawn Nicole, what does that mean? That means that there may be times you are on lists that you don't realize. And by the way, being a part of ProcuraFind, right? We literally, that's what we do. Our entire model is developing and connecting small businesses to corporate opportunities. And how we do that is we already have a nationwide network of corporate partners who come to us almost weekly asking for different needs, from staffing to tech to photography, sometimes to branding and marketing, hospitality. It just changes and it moves very quickly. So ProcuraFind will also bring to you RFP opportunities as well, like we've done. Okay, so those are the types of companies who will get the RFP opportunity. So RFPs are generally notifications that are sent via email to the registered email on file in the registration portal, which means you want to keep up with the email that you use to register. Because guys and ladies, if you don't use that email anymore, you will not get those RFPs. So this is why we are teaching, making sure that every 90 days you have a system of going back in these portals and updating, or have your admin do it. Who's keeping this information hygienic for you and up to date? Okay, let's keep going. So, did you know that there are top companies that use the RFP process to win contracts? So take a look at the screen for a second. We've got Booz Allen. They actually have won major government contracts. And in fact, so I come from the professional services world, you all, and we had entire teams that would be grouped together to work on a request for a proposal. Like they would bring in experts, they would bring in communities of practice, centers of excellence, and we would huddle and spend time, like have work sessions responding to RFPs. Lockheed Martin, notorious for it. Deloitte, Oracle, Accenture, IBM, all the big guys. That's what they do. That's how they win government contracts. Remember, these big professional services firm, they are already in the corporate client and the government client space. That's how they're different from you, right? Right now, we're like small businesses, right? We're seen as small businesses. They already do this and they do it well. So my background comes from this world. That's why I understand pricing. I'm not afraid of pricing. I understand how MSAs work, tier ones, tier twos, you name it. Okay. Anyway, just thought you should know that if you think you're beyond RFPs, these big companies also fill out RFPs. Okay. So why are RFPs necessary? Because a lot of you are going to say, I will never fill out an RFP, right? I'm intimidated by it. I don't like it. It takes time. I never win, right? All the things. And as a result, you won't fill out an RFP. And I will tell you that you need to know how to fill one out, because there will be times that something will require an RFP response, right? A request for proposal. So why are they necessary in this new world, this competitive merit-based landscape? Well, number one, they're necessary to ensure a competitive bidding and a fair selection of suppliers. This world is becoming more transparent than ever before, and now everybody's on the fence to show that they are being compliant and transparent. It also allows the buyer to compare pricing, experience, and approach, right, from small business to small business. Meaning, if I don't send out an RFP and I just keep choosing my favorite guy, right, or my favorite girl, or just whoever is close by, I may be missing out on the best pricing, the best experience and approach, and you don't know if you don't know. So the RFP process allows you to be competitive and to really compare easily. Also, an RFP, a request for proposal, allows the author of the RFP, so the person requesting the information, to really specify clearly and critically think through, what do I really need for this work? What do I want this small business to be able to do? Okay. Also, they reduce the risk by ensuring procurement transparency and documentation. Basically, that means they're not going to get sued. Okay. So major companies right now are concerned, especially in this economy, with getting sued. So fun fact, the concept of the RFP, the request for proposal, it actually dates all the way back to the US military, as far back as the 1960s and beyond. So I just want you all to know that we didn't just start this. This has been a thing for a long time, okay? So how are RFPs delivered and when? We kind of already talked about this. Delivery methods, number one, if you look to the left of the screen here, RFPs can be posted publicly on government or company procurement portals. If you are signed up for a portal, make sure you check it weekly, you guys, right? It doesn't make sense to sign up for things if you don't have a system in place for ongoing monitoring and accountability. These are strategies and things you want to build into your process, okay? Also, the most popular way is you will be email notified directly. Also, like I mentioned, it will be shared in a supplier database like Ariba, Bonfire, SAP, Fieldglass, supplier.io, and it will be published through bid alert platforms like BidNet or SAM.gov. Okay, so again, an RFP is issued when a buyer has a clear need. So not you, but the buyer, right? Because you're the supplier. So the buyer has a clear need and they push out RFPs to over 100 companies like yours, right? Or the buyer wants multiple options for a competitive bid, or there is a budget allocated for the purchase of a project and they need to get close to best pricing, or their procurement policy or law requires competitive sourcing, especially in that public sector, which is local, that's city and county, state, and federal. All right, let's keep going, you all. So let's talk about some scandals. All right, so let's talk about some RFP scandals and why this is big business. So one of the scandals took place in 2019, so not that long ago, you all. Microsoft versus Amazon. There was a government contract called JEDI. Yep, this actually happened, where the U.S. Department of Defense issued an RFP for a $10 billion cloud computing project called JEDI, right, which was short for Joint Enterprise Defense Infrastructure. Well, here's the controversy. Amazon, who was widely expected to win, they actually lost. They lost to Microsoft, sparking absolute allegations of political interference. Who was in office and did this trump who the Department of Defense chose? As a result, you all, Amazon filed a formal complaint suggesting that former, at the time, now we know he's the president, right? But former President Trump influenced the decision due to personal animus toward Jeff Bezos. Eventually, you all, the Pentagon canceled the contract entirely due to the legal delays and restructured it into a new multi-vendor program where multiple businesses were able to take part. So this is not it. If you look at the screen, there's all types of controversies when it comes to RFPs, which is why some small businesses do not like to fill them out. What I would say is know how to play on both sides of the fence. Understand how to build your relationships and also understand how to fill out an RFP so that you can stay ready and you don't got to get ready. Okay. All right. So let's keep going, you all. So now we're going to break down 9 additional terms that are common with the RFP process and some general terms that I want you to know in this section because you all are looking to show up as a pro. All right, so number 1, solicitation. This is the act of requesting proposals from vendors. So oftentimes, while we are calling it an RFP, on the government side or the author of the RFP, they will say, we sent out a solicitation today, or the solicitation will be live November 8th, right? What they mean by that is the RFP opening. So solicitation, RFP, it sort of means the same thing. It's the act of requesting. Then there's a pre-bid meeting. This is important. I want you to lean in. So when you have an RFP, and yes, I want you to read the whole thing, and we're going to talk about in just a moment how you review it, how you determine if it's for you or not for you. But most RFPs have a pre-bid meeting. It is important for you to try your best to show up at the pre-bid meeting, whether that is in person or that is by phone. The reason is that a pre-bid meeting is one of your early and probably first opportunities to meet the buying managers. It could be plural or singular, but this is also part of the relationship building. This is also where you get to see the other small businesses competing for the same contract. They are your competitors, but they could easily become teaming partners in the future. You want to show up at these meetings. You want to make sure people know your name, right? So this is not a meeting you want to skip, which is why when you get the request for the proposal, the solicitation, it literally says, here's the deadline for asking questions. Here's where the pre-bid meeting is going to be or when it's going to be. Sometimes it's virtual, sometimes it's in person. Also, the word addendum or addenda. These are updates to the documentation. I'll give you a real scenario. Dr. Dawn Nicole, about 2 years ago, was completing an RFP for the city of Charlotte. And I saw some language I didn't love. They needed a company to build an internal tech system or something to that effect. And I remember the soliciting company, the city of Charlotte, was saying that whatever you build, it becomes the property of us. And I was like, mm, our system is kind of we own our IP. We can build you a clone or a duplicate, but honey, it will always be ours. We own the IP to the solution. You can host it, we can host you on it, you can rent it, you can lease it. And so I raised alarm that not every solution will enable you, City of Charlotte, to actually outright own it when it is already trademarked and owned, right? When I raised this question, I remember they came back with an addendum to the original RFP, which talked about unless it's trademarked or it's proprietary. So that's an example, okay? Also, a bidders conference. This is a meeting to ensure all bidders understand the scope and requirements. Now, sometimes a pre-bid meeting interchangeably is called a bidders conference because some of you will have asked in the past, how are they different? I would tell you that I've seen a pre-bid meeting as the opportunity to ask questions, but then a bidders conference may come as a secondary step for people who are close. It is an invite only, typically, kind of final step for people that they are strongly considering, and there needs to be more clarification given. So just know that. Also, a Q&A period. You just heard me talk about that. This is the window of time that you have to ask questions around this RFP. And guess what? There is a time frame. It does shut off at a certain time. Also, we talked about RFP, request for proposal. We talked about RFQ, request for quote. We already talked about RFI, request for information, and request for bid or invitation, right? Very, very, very similar terms that you want to familiarize yourself with. At this point, look at the screen. What questions do you have? Think about what those are, because I want you to prepare questions to email to me so that I can get you an answer, my friend. Let's keep going. So now we're going to talk about the type of data that you want to have available at the ready. Now, you don't want to just be getting it ready at the time you learn about the RFP, but I'm going to teach you why. You want to have all this information pulled together on a master doc where it already lives, so that at any time you get notified about an RFP, you go to your RFP folder, you go to your master doc, and you start copying and pasting and then customizing to the specifications of the RFP. So let's get into the common details and data you will likely always need for any RFP. Number one, your company information, you all. It's pretty straightforward, pretty obvious, but I'm going to say it again, not for you, but the people in the back, okay? So company information, this is your legal business name, your address, right? The actual address where your company is registered, not a PO box, okay? Your contact info, the year your company was established and the structure of your business. Is it an S Corp? Is it an LLC, right? And the point of contact for the proposal. This, my friends, falls under company information, and it is literally somewhere in the front. It is your leading information. Secondly, an executive summary. This is a brief overview of your company. So typically it's a high-level response to the RFP, right? So why are you the best for this? Give us some information about your company. What is your mission? What do you do? Who do you do it for? Why are you the best? You got to be able to answer that question. I love answering why we're the best. When people come to me and say, Dawn Nicole, I joined the chamber and I didn't get anything, I typically know what I'm going to say next, right? Here's why we are better, okay, because this is the one thing we do well. Chambers do a lot of things. They convene, they network, that's all cute and great. We care about getting you a contract, right? No matter where it comes from. So I digress, okay? Qualifications, what qualifies you? What qualifies you to have this conversation? Listen, when I first started my business, true story, okay? I remember working with a business coach. I worked with a lot of paid business coaches. Yes, I invest in myself. And I remember that this woman asked me one day, she said, Dawn Nicole, what qualifies you to be in this space? And I said, what qualifies me? And of course, change your mindset. But I was like so offended. What do you mean? I've been in corporations 20 something years. And then she just kind of laughed and said, oh, honey, you are not a businesswoman yet. You are not an entrepreneur. You still answering this question, right? And you're all in your feelings. Here's my point. You have to be able to defend fiercely, vehemently, at any point in time, what qualifies you to hold space, right? What qualifies you to have this conversation? Why should we listen to you? We are an authority on all things X, right? We do one thing very well, and that is this. We own this corner of the market. We pride ourselves on this. Why are you the absolute best, right? So here is where you're going to list out relevant industry experience, case studies. Y'all know how I feel about case studies. If you just get through acing a project, I need for you to document that, y'all. We move so fast, we don't document. But what was the problem, solution, result? PSR statement, right? Here was the problem. Here was the solution we introduced. And as a result, here was the result that they faced, right? Or that they achieved. So case studies are so important. And the more you can have these on your website, the better, okay? List of client references and any certifications you believe will help you in winning your case, okay? So that's your qualifications and experiences, scope of services and technical approach. How will you fulfill the requirements? What are the tools, technologies, and methods you will use? What's your timeline for delivery? Oh, I got to talk about this real fast. I am trying to get this nationwide. Y'all know me. I'm always up to a new project, right? I am trying to lock down for ProcuraFind a nationwide project that has a heartfelt approach. And I'm looking to bring in a secondary partner as a subcontractor in order to win the deal. Well, the potential subcontractor gave me all of his information, but I don't have his pricing, right? And not just, well, I don't have his pricing actually. And so I had to go back and request that to work it into my bid, but I also didn't have his timeline for delivery. So while you did all these great things, you told me who you work with, what is your process? How many days is this a 7-day process, a 2-day process? Because I need to build your time frame into my process. Anyway, I digress. Timeline for delivery, key team members it takes to get the job done. Finally, for this page, because there's a continuation coming, pricing proposal. What are the itemized cost or pricing structure? And optional costs. Are there savings alternatives, right? If I get this many, can I save? If I do this by this certain amount of time, will I get a pricing discount? Let me tell you something. Buyers and procurement officers, they love discounts. Yes, they have the budget, but they love you prioritizing their budget. So you have to be strategic with your pricing. Yes, I know you're going to charge the regular market $399 per widget, but if they're getting ready to buy 1,000, you better look at charging $299 per widget, right? I'm just saying that's what I mean by subsidized pricing. So they're looking for you to be strategic. What are some optional cost savings alternatives? If you pay us on a net 30, we can bring you the price right faster. That means if you pay us our money quicker, I can bring the price down a little bit. If you get this in bulk, I can bring the price down. If you guarantee a year contract, I can bring the price down. Are y'all picking up what your girl Dr. Dawn Nicole is putting down? Okay. All right. Also, what are the terms and conditions related to pricing? Milestone billing, like I just mentioned, right? Net 30, net 60, any discounts, so on and so forth. Is this making sense? All right, next page. Finally, compliance and legal, proof of your insurance, licenses and permits, signed forms, conflict of interest. This is big. Let me tell you why this is big, okay? Because a lot of y'all are going to say, well, wait a minute. If I'm working with Lowe's and I offer this solution to Lowe's, I can just go over here to Home Depot or Tractor Supply and offer the same thing, right? No. A lot of these major corporations who are top brands, they pride themselves on proprietary conversations, proprietary models. They do not want to feel, and oftentimes they will make you sign a conflict of interest to make sure that you don't go and share trade secrets with their competitor, right? Of course, this is a very normal thing, so get used to this. Project management plan. Oh, this is let me dig into, I'm sorry, y'all. I'm getting excited and this is pre-recorded. And you see, I'm just super excited. I'm just very theatrical. Let me tell you why I love number 7. I personally have seen proposals put together where you all will say, here's how much it costs for me to deliver this. Here's how I'm going to do it. Here's my team. You'll have the whole thing listed out, hit submit, and never spell out the project management plan. How is this project going to be managed? How often will you be meeting with the buyer to ensure that the project is on track? And you don't have to be the project manager. Did you bill in, budget in the cost of a PM? Even if it's a low grade PM, even if it's a low touch, a high touch PM could cost you upwards of 120,000, right? For 3 months or 2 months, right? Or something thereof, right? A fraction of that for the month of time. But you could get a low grade PM. You could get a temporary person whose job it is to oversight, meet with the client, give updates and reports, right? But a lot of us won't build that in, but we should. In fact, they know that you know what you're doing when you build in the cost of project management. Now, if you want to be the project manager to keep the money in your pocket, that's fine too. But then you still need to show a cost to you, not only delivering the supply, but managing the project. That's a separate cost, my friend. That's a separate cost, my friend, right? The cost of you showing up, giving information and reports and all the things to keep the project on track, updates, that costs money. That costs time. Okay, let's keep going. Appendices and attachments. These are resumes of team members, product sheets, additional compliance documents. Let me ask you all a question. When you are working with other companies who are similarly modeled like you, other coaches, other consultants, other tech folks, right? Other financial coaches, whatever they are you not only getting their capability statement, but are you also getting their resume? Because when you become the prime on a contract and you show them as team members, right? Even though y'all don't work for the same company, many of these corporations will want a resume of everybody involved. Not just, it's your capability statement because you are the owner of the work, but they want to see resumes. All right. So make sure you're collecting this stuff early and often. All right. Let's keep going. So 5 best practices, all right, 5 RFP best practices. You should have this in your participant guide as well. This is the first thing I want you all to do. Qualify the opportunity first. Before spending time and resources, make sure it's a good fit for you. Not everything is a good fit for you. Make sure it's a good fit. So how do you do this? Ask yourself, do we meet the mandatory minimum requirements? Do we have relevant past experience? I cannot tell you how many times we made the rookie mistake, and this was like 2018 in the government, the federal government space, different business, where we put all this work. I mean, literally, we put all this work into responding to the RFP, and we got midway there and we saw the minimal requirements, and it was like we needed to have worked in this other government field, and we didn't because we were new. And yeah, we spent hours on that thing only to find out it was a no-go. So I'm going to show you a great go, no-go checklist to use on the next page. Don't worry. But that's the first thing you do, you guys. Qualify the opportunity. Next, so we're moving from left to right. Follow the instructions exactly. RFPs are often strictly evaluated based on compliance. Remember, I told you they have evaluation criteria? Well, you paying attention is one piece of criteria. So answer every question in order as requested. Use the format, font size, and file type specified. A non-compliant proposal, even if it's excellent, can be disqualified, and I've seen it happen. Now, this says don't copy and paste, even though I just told you to copy and paste. So what's going on here? Donna Cole, what are you saying? So here's the thing. Tailor it. So even though you can copy and paste similar information that's going to be repetitive and general to your company, you 100% need to then tailor, modify, and massage this RFP to meet the needs of the client. Okay. So if they are specifically looking for AI chatbots, do not deep dive into AI e-courses. Don't do that. They're not looking to buy an e-course. Go deep into chatbots. How have you used them? What are the use cases, right? Who's your user? What is the data that you find? You know, what are the improvements you can make? Like go crazy with customization once you've copied and pasted common information to your company, okay? Also, highlight your value proposition and differentiators. Chances are they are getting hundreds of responses for the same RFP. How will you be different? What is your value proposition? What is your unique differentiator that makes you stand out to become the music amidst the noise? Okay. Finally, start early and plan backwards. You guys, I learned the hard way when responding to a JP Morgan Chase RFP in 2021. Kicked my butt, okay? Because I was doing consulting somewhere else, but I was trying to like moonlight in the background part time, filling out this RFP. What I should have done is really just booked out so many hours per day, right? I should have just said, okay, I'm going to fill out this RFP. I'm going to do the first swag by myself. I'm going to dedicate 3 hours a day, right? And then on week 2, if there's time, so timing matters, I'm going to bring in an oversight team. By the way, I do recommend RFP buddies. I do. That is someone you can call, who you can talk it through with. And you can even say, by you being an RFP buddy, I'll give you a small percentage of something, make it worth their while. You do need as many eyes and ears that you trust to be on your RFP. Don't go at it alone. Okay, so start early and plan backward. Last minute proposals lead to mistakes. Lord knows I know. Okay, so here is a quick list. See an example on the screen of a go, no go checklist. And you guys, because I love you so much, this is in your participant guide. Check it out. So number 1, here's the question to ask yourself. Basic fit. Do we offer the services and products requested? Yes or no, or notes. And do we meet the mandatory eligibility certification requirements? Number 2, do we have the time, right? When is this due? Maybe you just picked up the RFP today and it's due by Friday. You all, are you really going to be able to squeeze it in comfortably? Right? Some of you may try it. I've been there, but depending on the complexity of it, right? I like to at least have 2 or 3 weeks with the RFP. That's just me. Okay. Past performance. Do we have relevant and recent past performance to showcase? And can we provide references or case studies that align with the project scope? Strategic alignment. Does this project align with our long-term goals or industry focus? Not all money is good money, just like grandma said, okay? Also, will winning this contract strengthen our credibility or open new doors? Almost always, that's a yes, okay? Cost and ROI. This is good. Can we price competitively while maintaining a profit? That matters. Recently, I was asked to travel. I'm not going to like spill the beans and give a bunch of information. Y'all know me. I like to protect our corporations, but I was asked to travel and provide a half-day training, and it was not quite my price. And I needed them to get up to my price. And the reason that matters is because when I do a training, I like to pull in another company, and there has to be enough margin for me to make money and to pay someone and just for it to be worth it, right? And so this is why I always ask the question, can I really deliver this while maintaining a profit? Will this contract lead to follow-on opportunities? That part. So it's the second part for me that made me go a little bit under and sometimes you'll have to do that. Is the relationship worth it? Yes. Is there more opportunities that can come from this? Yes. Okay. And then risk. This is big. Trust me, I'm facing this right now. Okay. Are there any major legal, financial, or reputational risk involved? Do we understand all the terms? So I will say this. Recently, I took on a project and aced it. We killed it. We aced the project. It was amazing. But technically, if we're not careful, the project can be scrutinized by people who may want to call it a diversity project, and it was not, right? So you have to like think long term about the impact of saying yes. And even if you say yes, you still want to quantify, is this a high risk project? And am I legaled up? Am I legalized up where I have what it takes to fight the good fight if questioned? These are all things you want to ask yourself. So the other thing is an RFP group review. So today, you're probably watching this alone, and I'm going to give you an RFP to actually look at, to analyze as we come to a close. And the reason we typically would do this as a group is because I want you all to get comfortable reviewing RFPs as a group. Remember, I told you need an RFP buddy. Who's your buddy going to be? In fact, I want you right now, before I go on, I want you to write down on a piece of paper 2 names. Who are two people that you trust that you're like, you know what? I'm going to call this person and see if they will be my RFP buddy so that when in need, we can team up to review RFPs. Okay. So let's look at this fun example on the screen. We're going to say that ProcuraFind, who is rebranding nationwide, we have a marketing rebrand, a national campaign, an RFP around our rebrand. And so ProcuraFind, formerly Queen City Women in Business, is for pretend issuing this request for proposal to identify and contract with qualified marketing firms like you, for example, that can lead a comprehensive rebranding initiative and launch a nationwide marketing campaign. The selected firm will help develop a cohesive brand identity and executive powerful digital and print marketing strategy that reflects our evolving vision and elevate our national visibility. So, what is the first thing? If you end up with this RFP in your hands, you want to understand the overview and the purpose of this RFP. So this is an overview. What is it that we're trying to accomplish? Okay. Background information. We now give you some background around who we are, who we were, and why we're transitioning. So then number 3, the SOW. What is the scope of work we're looking for? We're looking for competitive firms to help us with a mobile app design and develop it. We're looking for firms who can help us with SEO strategy and implementation. We're looking for firms who can design product marketing material and collateral, and data-driven outcomes and reporting. So specifically focusing on this, now what you would do is this is enough information for someone like you to take this and say, okay, why are we the best firm for this? Number 1, we are a marketing company who does X, and hopefully you would be pointing out when you've helped other companies in a rebrand. So it would not be just good enough. Now I'm giving you some gems. It wouldn't be good enough for you to say, hey, we're just a marketing company and we do some branding. I specifically am listening for you to say, I already helped X amount of companies with a rebrand. Here's how we approached it. Here's how we did it. Here's what we changed. In that rebrand, we introduced a new mobile app. We developed it. We introduced a new SEO strategy. We introduced marketing collateral like this and data-driven outcomes. This is how we did it. This is the phase by which we've done it. This is our team size. This is how long it takes us to do it. Here's our pricing. Here are some use cases. Do y'all see the depth and breadth of how to respond to a proposal? So if we were together, I would have put you in breakout rooms and I would ask you to come back to me in 5 minutes with your best pricing. And I'd be listening to see how you all priced it. And I'm also, here's a cheat code. I'm also looking to see the commonality of pricing. So if most of your companies are within, I would say, $1,000 to $5,000, it's probably well priced. But if there's one company that's like 4 times higher, something is wrong. You outpriced yourself. Okay. So this is an example that I would love for you to print and actually take time to respond to it. Even if you're not in the marketing space, use this as a draft to respond to it, right? If you are in the marketing space, I would love for you to actually send me your response to see how you approached it, okay? Again, we don't have time for the team exercise because I'm pre-recording this. So in closing, my friends, remember, an RFP is a formal document issued by the company who's looking to solicit proposals from potential vendors and service providers like you. When RFPs are not required or utilized, sometimes it's because there's a relationship established, it's $10,000 and under, or you are on a GSA schedule, which I believe I put a link in the chat. Why are RFPs necessary? Who can answer that? Let me see. Why is an RFP necessary? That's right? It's right on the screen, but because it ensures a competitive bidding and fair selection process, and it helps the soliciting party to compare very quickly. We talked about 7 key terms and also 9 general terms. We talked about common RFP data and details. I told you all, create your RFP folder, create you a master deck with all this information. Make sure you have people's capability statements and resumes because they become part of your team when you are providing an RFP response, okay? We also talked about 5 RFP practices, and I gave you that awesome go, no-go list. With that said, you all, we are at the end. You've got questions and I have answers. So if you've gone through this entire section and you've also filled out your participant guide, I am going to invite you to email me your questions. I can take 2 questions per person. Again, you will email those to Dawn Nicole at ProcuraFind.com. I cannot wait to hear from you. And in the YouTube video link description below, I'm going to put some information on GSA schedules, and I have a fabulous video for responding to RFPs. All right, I'll talk to you soon, and I'll see you next month in person, virtual person, for the E portion, evaluating the 7 C's of your ecosystem.